Sarah had always been the kind of woman who believed in fairy tales. She dreamed of a love that would sweep her off her feet, a love that would last forever. But life had other plans. Married to John for 10 years, their relationship had become a routine, a series of quiet dinners, casual conversations, and silent nights. She loved him, but the spark was gone. Or so she thought. One rainy evening, as Sarah was leaving her office, she bumped into a stranger. He was tall, with kind eyes and a smile that made her heart skip a beat. "I'm so sorry," she said, flustered, as he helped her pick up the files she had dropped. "No problem," he replied, his voice warm. "I'm Alex, by the way." That was the moment everything changed. Alex was everything John wasn't: spontaneous, adventurous, and full of life. They started meeting for coffee, then lunches, and soon, their conversations became the highlight of her day. Sarah knew it was wrong, but she couldn't help herself. For the first time in years, she felt alive. One day, Alex handed her a small, wrapped gift. "Open it," he said with a smile. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a heart. "This is beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But why?" Alex looked into her eyes and said, "Because you deserve to feel loved, Sarah. You deserve to be happy." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She stared at the bracelet, her mind racing. Was she really ready to risk everything for a chance at happiness? Or was this just a fleeting moment of passion? Little did she know, her decision would change not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. The next few weeks were a blur for Sarah. She found herself constantly thinking about Alex, his laugh, his words, the way he made her feel. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart raced, hoping it was him. But with each message, the guilt grew heavier. She knew she was playing with fire, yet she couldn't stop herself. One evening, as she was preparing dinner, John walked into the kitchen. He looked tired, his shoulders slumped, and his eyes distant. "Long day?" Sarah asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," he replied, sitting down at the table. "Work's been crazy." There was a pause, and then he added, "You've been quiet lately. Is everything okay?" Sarah froze. For a moment, she considered telling him everything about Alex, about how lost she had been feeling, about how she just wanted to feel alive again. But the words stuck in her throat. "I'm fine," she said finally, forcing a smile. "Just tired." That night, as she lay in bed, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing control. She thought about the life she had built with John, the house, the memories, the promises they had made to each other. Was she really willing to throw it all away for a man she barely knew? The next day, Alex texted her, "Meet me at the park. There's something I need to tell you." Her heart pounded as she read the message. She knew she shouldn't go, but curiosity got the better of her. When she arrived, Alex was waiting on a bench, his expression serious. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting down beside him. Alex took a deep breath. "Sarah, I need to be honest with you. I'm not who you think I am." Her stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked away, his hands trembling. I'm married too." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She felt the ground shift beneath her, her mind racing with questions. How could she not have known? How could she have been so blind? But before she could say anything, Alex continued. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I couldn't stay away from you." Sarah stood up, tears streaming down her face. "This was a mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "We can't do this." She turned and walked away, her heart shattered into a million pieces. But as she left, she couldn't help but wonder, was this really the end, or just the beginning of something even more complicated? Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Alex's confession. His words echoed in her mind, haunting her every waking moment. She tried to focus on her work, her marriage, her life, but everything felt hollow. The guilt was eating her alive, and she didn't know how much longer she could keep it all inside. One evening, as she was cleaning out her closet, she found an old photo album. It was filled with pictures of her and John smiling, laughing, holding hands. There were photos from their wedding, their honeymoon, their first home together. As she flipped through the pages, tears welled up in her eyes. How had they drifted so far apart? When had they stopped trying? Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Alex. "I need to see you. Please." Her heart raced as she read the words. She knew she shouldn't respond, but something inside her couldn't resist. "Where?" She typed back, her hands trembling. They met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. The moment Sarah saw him, she felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, longing. "Why did you call me here?" she asked, her voice cold. Alex looked down, his hands fidgeting. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he said quietly. "I know I messed up, but I can't let you go." Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "This is wrong, Alex. We're both married. We have responsibilities. We can't just throw everything away for this." Alex reached out and took her hand. "What if this is real, Sarah? What if we're meant to be together?" His words sent a shiver down her spine. She wanted to believe him, to believe that they could have a future together. But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. "I need time to think," she said finally, pulling her hand away. "I need to figure out what I want." As she left the cafe, Sarah felt more confused than ever. She knew she had to make a choice between the life she had built with John and the possibility of a new beginning with Alex. But what she didn't know was that her decision would have consequences far beyond what she could imagine. Sarah decided to take a few days off work to clear her mind. She needed space, away from John, away from Alex, away from everything. She booked a small cabin in the mountains, hoping the solitude would help her find the answers she was searching for. The first night at the cabin, Sarah sat by the fireplace, staring into the flames. She thought about her life, the choices she had made, the mistakes, the regrets. She thought about John and the love they once shared. She thought about Alex and the way he made her feel alive again. But most of all, she thought about herself, who she was, who she wanted to be. On the second day, as she was hiking through the woods, her phone buzzed. It was a message from John. "I miss you," it read. "Can we talk when you get back?" Sarah felt a lump in her throat. She hadn't expected this. She had assumed John was as disconnected as she was, but his message made her realize that maybe he still cared. Maybe there was still hope for them. That night, Sarah called John. "Hey," she said softly when he answered. "Hey," he replied, his voice filled with relief. "How are you?" They talked for hours about everything and nothing. It was the first real conversation they had had in months. By the end of it, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe they could find their way back to each other. But just as she was starting to feel a sense of clarity, her phone buzzed again. It was Alex. "I can't stop thinking about you," the message read. "I need to see you." Sarah's heart sank. She had been so close to making a decision, but now she was torn all over again. The next morning, Sarah packed her bags and headed back home. She knew she couldn't run away from her problems forever. She had to face them head on. But as she drove down the winding mountain road, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even imagine. When Sarah returned home, she was greeted by an unexpected sight. John had cleaned the house, cooked her favorite meal, and even lit candles. "Welcome back," he said with a smile. "I thought we could have a nice dinner together." Sarah was taken aback. This was the John she had fallen in love with, thoughtful, caring, and attentive. As they sat down to eat, John reached across the table and took her hand. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, his voice soft. "I know I haven't been the best husband lately, and I'm sorry. I want to make things right between us." Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had missed him. But just as she was about to respond, her phone buzzed. It was another message from Alex. "I'm outside. We need to talk." Sarah's heart sank. She looked at John, then at her phone, torn between the life she had and the life she could have. "I'll be right back," she said, getting up from the table. John looked confused but didn't say anything. Sarah stepped outside, where Alex was waiting by his car. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I couldn't wait any longer," Alex replied. "I need to know what you've decided." Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. She knew she had to make a choice once and for all. "Alex, I can't do this anymore," she said finally. "I have a life with John, and I can't just throw it away." Alex's face fell, but he nodded. "I understand," he said quietly. "I just hope you'll be happy." As Alex drove away, Sarah felt a mix of relief and sadness. She knew she had made the right decision, but it didn't make it any easier. When she walked back inside, John was waiting for her. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern in his eyes. Sarah nodded, forcing a smile. "Everything's fine," she said. "Let's finish our dinner." But as they sat back down at the table, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even imagine. Little did she know, the consequences of her decision were just beginning to unfold. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah tried her best to rebuild her life with John. They went to counseling, spent more time together, and slowly but surely, the spark between them began to reignite. Sarah was determined to make things work, to prove to herself and to John that their love was worth fighting for. But just as things were starting to feel normal again, Sarah received a letter in the mail. It was from Alex. Her hands trembled as she opened it, unsure of what to expect. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a few lines written in his familiar handwriting. "Dear Sarah, I hope this letter finds you well. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realized that what we had was never fair, not to you, not to me, and certainly not to the people we love. I've decided to end my marriage and start fresh. I'm moving to another city, away from all the memories and mistakes. I just wanted you to know that I'll always care about you, and I truly hope you find the happiness you deserve. Take care, Alex." Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she read the letter. She hadn't realized how much she had been holding onto the idea of Alex until that moment. But now, as she folded the letter and put it away, she knew it was time to let go for good. That night, as she lay in bed next to John, Sarah felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She had made her choice, and she was ready to live with it. She turned to John and whispered, "I love you." He smiled and pulled her close. "I love you too," he replied. As Sarah closed her eyes, she thought about the journey she had been on, the mistakes she had made, the lessons she had learned, and the love she had rediscovered. She knew life wasn't perfect, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. She had faced her demons, made her peace, and come out stronger on the other side. And as she drifted off to sleep, she realized that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful beginnings.